It is all about drip irrigation today. We're going to talk about why do drip irrigation, and then we're going to get it installed in this garden. Here are the different parts to the system, but before we get into talking about the individual parts, we're going to talk about what is drip irrigation and why do we want to use it. If you have a garden, you will need to water it, and there's a few different ways you can go about doing that. One way is to use one of these things. If you have more than just a couple garden boxes and your garden is of significant size, that probably isn't going to cut it for you. Running a hose off a spigot and watering by hand with a hose is another way. Or using that hose to run a sprinkler. Watering by hand with a hose is time consuming, and watering with a sprinkler wastes a lot of water because there's a lot of water evaporates into the air. Water all over the leaves of the plants can cause problems for the plants. It can cause fungus issues. If you're watering during the day with a sprinkler and the water droplets gets on the leaves when the sun is really intense, those water droplets can intensify the rays of the sun and actually cause damage to the leaves. So this is where drip... It's gotten pretty bright out. Let me go get my sunglasses. I'll be right back. There we are, much better. Drip irrigation is a really nice compromise between the two systems. It doesn't take up all the time like hand watering with a hose does. You can just turn on your water, or even better yet, use a timer, set it, forget it. And you don't have all the issues with water getting all over the leaves or wasting water or anything like that with the sprinkler system. The way it delivers water is through a little hose like this that has little tiny holes in it, and out of those holes drips just little beads of water. The spacing between the emitters on this particular drip line is about 12 inches, so you can have crops every 12 inches and water them. The water that drips out of here is slow and steady. I usually leave it on for about an hour, and I find that the soil all around each plant is sufficiently moist. Because this drip line is laying flat on the ground and putting that water directly in the soil, there's not a lot of moisture that is lost to evaporation. I use DripWorks to get all my drip irrigation products. I've been using it since 2016 and I'm pretty happy with it. I've never had any issues with it. If you get one of the kits, it comes with all the parts you need, all the tools you need to make it happen, and it comes together pretty quickly. This is our main tube right here. All it does is bring water from one end to the other. It's basically like having hose. And we already talked about this guy right here. This is our drip line. Up here, this is additional line. There's no drip emitters of this one, but it can run off of the big hose. So if you have multiple garden beds, go down the middle of all the beds with this hose and then run this line off the sides and bring it to individual garden boxes or garden bed, whatever you have going, and then hook the drip line to this. So you can use this where you need to run water, but without having to have it drip water out with the drip emitters. And here we have our small parts right here. We'll go over this. So this piece right here attaches in here, and this attaches to your garden hose. It's just a standard garden hose fitting that attaches to the end of the tube here. To get either this normal water line or your drip line attached to the water coming off of this main line, you need this punch tool. So this will just clip on the edge here. Wherever you want to run one of these hoses off of, you push down and it'll puncture a little hole in there. We'll show you that in just a minute. And then we use one of these transfer barbs to connect the two. We stick the transfer barb in the hole that we created and then attach the hose to the other side of the transfer barb, and that will transfer the water from this hose to the attached hose. You have this thing right here to plug off the other end of the hose so your water doesn't just gush out. Just slide one in through there, fold this over, and put it in the other side, and that pinches the water off. And these are stakes, so you can stake the line down onto the ground like that and push that into the ground so the hose stays where you want it to stay. And a DripWorks pressure regulator that comes with the kit. It takes your water pressure down to the appropriate volume for your drip emitters. And same with the drip emitter line, there's just a plug you stick in at the end of that hose so it cuts the water supply off and doesn't leak out everywhere. You'll have to use special transfer barbs if you're going to be running up the side of a garden box and making any 90-degree turns. There's special plugs for that. If you want to see how I set up one of those systems, check the pop-up bubble in the top right corner of your screen. Click on that and you can watch that video. In fact, that's the first video I ever made for this YouTube channel, almost 500 videos ago. But today I'm just running this out to a standard garden, not a raised bed or anything like that, so it's just going to lay flat on the ground. I won't need any of that fancy stuff. Enough talking, let's get this installed. Oh boy, looks like we got some rain clouds rolling in. I better speed up here. The emitters are dripping, the system is working. Homestead success. And just in time too, because it is raining. Which means I don't need to leave this on right now. While I was going through here, I did notice some sad leaves here on my kale and my squash. So I've picked them off and I'm gonna throw them to the chickens to see if they want them. Hello ladies. Looks like they were interested a little bit. Well, the rain is starting to pick up a little bit. It's getting heavier, so I'm gonna call it a wrap on this one. But what a relief to get that system in. No more hand watering for this season. I'll just open that faucet every day, let it drip for an hour to two depending on the weather. Good to go.